All right, we're recording now. So here we go. 3:09, day 1, minute 1. I still haven't figured out how to use this. I want that. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna write some notes. First thing we're going to talk about is human factors. The reason why we want to talk about human factors is, even though in this whole introduction that we just covered, we talked a lot about attitudes. It was funny, I was talking to the FAA. I like the FAA. If there was an FAA fan club, I would be the president. I've always enjoyed the FAA, even when I have not enjoyed the FAA. Because every now and then the FAA talks to you in a way that you wish they weren't. For things you did that you wish you wouldn't have. We'll talk about that. But I've always gotten along very, very well with the FAA, and I rely on them in my business because we want to do things right. And when you do things right and you strive to do things right, the FAA is a great tool to have. If you are somebody who doesn't like authority, you want to do it your way, the FAA is not going to be your friend, and your life is going to be miserable because you'll always be looking over your shoulder. So you make the choice how you want to do it. But anyway, I was talking to one of our FAA inspectors, and there are 3 offices in the FAA, basically. There's the operations, which is pilots deal with it. There's maintenance, which obviously we do. And there's the FAST team, FAAST. They're the safety arm of FAA. When I first got into the FAA, when I first got into aviation, the FAA was the cops, right? No different than, your CHP or your city cops. I mean, they're out there looking for, doing bad stuff. You speed, you're going to get a ticket, right? It was all about catch you and enforce. And I don't know who had this epiphany and said, wait a minute. For the most part, mechanics are good people trying to do the right thing who occasionally make mistakes. We need to find those people and help them not make mistakes. Instead of finding them, that's not doing any good. They didn't intend to do it, so why not take their money? Let's figure out what went wrong, fix what went wrong so it doesn't happen to anybody else. And it's this whole new way of thinking that has changed since I got into aviation, which is wonderful. And they came up with the FAST team, which they are non-enforcement. They're removed from that. They do training. You can talk to them. They're awesome. So anyway, I was talking to this guy. I remember his name is Chuck Jones, because if you're into cartoons, Chuck Jones was a famous illustrator. I don't think it's the same guy. And he wrote Bugs Bunny and stuff, I think. Anyway, he said, Kevin, you guys do human factors, right? And I said, oh, absolutely, yeah. I don't do it myself in first year, but I know in second year, and I point that way because second year's classroom's down there. Second year, they definitely have a module. Huh. He goes, don't you think that should be day 1 stuff, Kevin? I said, you know what, Chuck? You're right. And guess what? It's day 1 stuff now. So we do human factors, day 1 stuff. So human factors. And I enjoy human factors, really, in studying this stuff. Human factors. All right. And also sometimes because of where I stopped working, and Microsoft Word doesn't always keep my outline nice, I just go with it. All right, so we must know that the safety, we already looked at this in that, the creed, safety and lives of others are dependent upon your skill and judgment. Again, anybody can be an aircraft mechanic. We'll talk about that a little bit. You're here because you want to have an AMP certificate, which means you want the authority to inspect aircraft and return it to service. It's a whole other thing than working on them. When you return it to service, you're saying it is in a condition for safe flight. It meets its type, design, and a condition for safe flight. They're dependent on you. So I have a flight school customer, has multiple planes. When I work on flight school airplanes, they have to have, they see me every 50 hours for an oil change, and they see me every 100 hours for a 100-hour inspection. That's the name. And they got to see me at least once a year for an annual inspection. All the other people who are not flying flight schools and they're just going out for their hamburgers, like me and my plane, we have to have an annual inspection. So every year it's got to be looked at and have a whole annual inspection. And they're depending on me, well, the good pilots are depending on me to make sure their airplane is safe. The really crappy ones are depending on me to not find it so it doesn't get expensive. But it's my skill and judgment, right? I'm looking for problems. I'm saving their lives, so to speak. That sounds a little, not saving their lives, keeping them out of trouble. And it just moves its way up and up. And we're going to look at a lot of accidents that happened here today. Not accidents happened today. Today we're going to look at some accidents that happened in the past. We're going to talk about them and the things that went wrong. But it is dependent upon you. So let's see. Here's some good news. Only 12, and some of these statistics are a little old, 12% of aviation incidents and accidents are maintenance related. Who are my pilots in the classroom? Wow. Okay, you got pilot in the back, pilot over here. Let's see, over there. Do you have your own plane?
Me.
What do you fly?
I fly glider looking for.
Okay. Back.
We have a Cutlass, Cessna Cutlass.
177?
No, that's Cardinal.
Yeah.
Cutlass is a 172 with retractable gear.
Oh, okay. Because I know it's Centurion's the 210 and the yeah. Okay, 172 RG.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Great, good trainers. And then you just got your license, and you're flying. You guys have a 150
School plane.
School plane. What do we got?
It says a 122 and a Piper Cherokee.
Yours or school?
Rental.
Rentals. Okay. Who'd I miss? You flying stuff in Bodie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I trained with P2.
152. What school?
Auburn.
Auburn. Okay.
Sunshine Flames.
Oh, Sunshine. Those are nice people. Sunshine. All right. So only 12% of aviation incidents and accidents are maintenance related. So what does that mean? Pilots, raise your hand.
Pilots are the ones that cause the other one.
You're the 88. You're the 88%. We're only 12%. I'm a pilot, so I can say it. Us dumb pilots, we're responsible for 88% of the problems. So, you know what that means. So, yeah.
How much of that percentage, though, because a lot of pilots, especially private pilots, are their own mechanics, right? Does that get factored into that?
I don't know that they've got that deep, but so 88% are not maintenance related. Well, that's pretty good news for us, right? Airplane crashes, statistically speaking, 12% chance it was your fault. That sounds good on the surface, doesn't it? But of that 12%, 90% are fatal. So in other words, if you make a mistake, it was your mistake that caused that airplane to crash. There's a 90% chance people died. The coroner had to show up. Families were notified. Somebody's life changed forever. Somebody didn't come home for dinner. And whose fault was it? Yeah.
So for the Wi-Fi, you said it was our.
Yeah, okay, we're back to Wi-Fi. Yeah, I was going really deep right there. It's something emotional, but...
I didn't want to I was trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, but when I'm typing in my credentials, it's saying it's not working.
I don't know what to tell you.
Can I use a hotspot on my phone?
I don't care what you do. Any more Wi-Fi questions before I get back into you killing people? So I need you to think about that for a minute. We're going to talk a lot about this in the next many hours. But this is, right now, from your point of view, this is just a hypothetical. This is won't happen to me. It happens to other people. But I'm going to tell you right now, it happens to us. It's happened to me multiple times. I have been to funerals of my friends, airplanes I've worked on, hoping that it wasn't my fault. I have been at accident scenes where I used to build engines. That was what I did mostly, build engines. Looking at my brand new engine stuffed in the dirt with somebody telling me that the people on board will never walk again. Best case scenario. They're alive, but they'll never walk again. They're paralyzed. That's a fact. And I have to wonder, was that me? What did I forget to do? And generally speaking, you don't get to find out for a long time, years. So there's this period of time where you get to wonder, because you don't sleep anymore, did you kill them? Did you hurt them? And then you have to go to work after not having slept for days on end, wondering, am I going to make the same mistake again? This is what you're signing up for. So it's not fun and games at this point. This is really freaking serious. And you need to ask yourself, are you prepared for this lifestyle? So I'm blessed, fortunate, whatever. I have never caused it. The one where everybody was paralyzed was determined to be 100% pilot error. They put the airplane on a test stand, started it up. It ran strong and beautiful when there was gas in it. Pilot turned gas off before he took off. Took off with the tanks on off. Pilot error. But it was a year before it was released. And then my company was sued for millions of dollars. And the attorneys all said, we got to pay it. And we said, but wait a minute. The FAA, the NTSB, they all said it was pilot error beyond a shadow of a doubt, guaranteed, no questions asked. And they said, when those people roll in a wheelchair because they can't walk anymore, and the jury sees that, they're going to feel sorry for them, and you're going to lose. So we settled out of court for almost $1 million. That's what you're asking to sign up for. Maybe you go to work for the airlines. We're going to look at some airline accidents, and you think, well, I'm a little more insulated from that. You kill more people faster. And we're going to look at one story where mechanics then killed themselves because they couldn't take it. That's what you're asking. That's the lifestyle you're asking for. So every day, first thing I do when I get up in the morning, every day, I look at the news. Anybody I know? Any airplanes I've worked on? That's what you're asking to do? That's reality. That's this industry. Now, after I look at the news, and there is nobody that went down that I knew, and I'm in the clear, I can't wait to get to work. And I look forward to it every day. And it's exciting. And I finish a plane. I finished an annual inspection on Saturday. Anyway, finished Saturday. I took Friday off. I had to come in Saturday, finish it up, call them up, come get it. It was awesome. But what did I do? Grabbed my handheld radio and I stood there until that thing took off, climbed to a safe altitude, turned, and then I went to FlightAware, pulled up the aircraft, and I had to watch it till it got home. Why? Because that's what you do. So, I don't know. That's what you're signing up for? You sure this is what you want to do? So maybe if you just woke up one day and you're like, hey, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I should go to college. And you go to the Sacramento City College website and you're going, what do they have? Accounting? Oh, God, no. Aircraft maintenance. Okay. Because, we're in the A's, and so maybe you didn't want to get down to the B's and the C's and the D's. You didn't get to flight technology because they're all the way in the F's. You didn't want to become an aircraft dispatcher. And you settled on this because, hey, it sounded like fun. It is fun, but it's also not fun. And I want you to know, I decided this year I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So this is what you're signing up for. So, I don't know. Anybody ready to take a break and leave? So 90% are fatal. I've lost a lot of friends. You talk to Phil and Larry between us, been to a lot of funerals. Fortunately, we haven't caused them. But we're humans. Humans make mistakes. And I don't know. I don't want to say it's a matter of time, but I suppose if you do anything long enough, but hopefully not. Hopefully not. But what did I just say? Hopefully not. What does hope mean? Take it out of my hands. Well, the idea is put it back in my hands. That's what human factors are about. Take the hope out of it. Okay. Yeah, it'd be easy. I decide I'm not going to kill anybody. Okay, that's good to say. I have decided that. I just got to make it happen. That's what human factors are. How do we not let this happen? But it happens. All right. I'm going to say there's 3 types of human error. And then later on I'm going to say there's like 2 types of human error. And then another, it's just the way it comes out of some books. So this book that I happen to, 2 types of human error. One way of defining it would be 3 types of human error. And we could say omission. That is not performing. Not performing an act or task. An act or task. It can be unintentional. Or intentional. The other day I was working on a Cessna 150, stuck a valve. So pilot did an emergency landing. It's Cessna 150. They're a 4-cylinder engine. They don't run well on 3. So one's stuck. Thing's not running. Lands it. They call us up. And I go out there and diagnose them. Like, you got a stuck valve. So one valve isn't going in and out. It's completely stuck. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the cylinder off. I'm looking at it, and I said, by the way, before I get started, you've got a spin-on oil filter. Spin-on oil filters what cars have. Most of them, they spin it on. Not all airplanes have them. Sometimes they have screens. Because you got a spin-on this thing, which wasn't original to this aircraft. They just bought it. And I said, one of the dangers of a spin-on this particular aircraft is people don't know that there's a screen way back down here. You guys been pulling that open and looking to see if this, you're supposed to take it out under newer rules, but a long time ago was an option. I said, do you guys know about this? We don't know about this. Have you ever pulled that screen? We don't know if it's a screen or not. Well, have you ever looked? Nope. Do you want me to do it? I'm here. I can look at it if you'd like. We would like it if you would do that. I popped the screen open. Oh my God. Guys, what? You got to see this. It was completely packed, nearly solid with metal.
What?
And I said, your oil filter, your spin-on's clean, huh? And he said, yeah, it's spotless, because it's all right here. This screen filtered it out, and then it went to the spin-on, and it was fine. So nobody had been checking this oil screen. There was an omission. Was it intentional or unintentional? It was unintentional at their point, because it was a pilot doing their own maintenance and they're allowed to. So it was completely unintentional. They had no idea. It was not in their knowledge base that this was an add-on filter, that originally it said it was an option, but the new ones say it's not an option. You have to remove the screen, blah, blah, blah. Now, let's just say that airplane, I would have fixed the cylinder, not brought it up. They said, and hey, by the way, Kevin, we're due for an oil change, do an oil change. I kind of look at it and I go, I'm just doing a spin-on today. It's hot. I'm remote work. It's hard to get to. You got to safety wire it. It's like, At what point, what am I there then? I didn't do it, and it's I chose not to. So there's an example of that. Let's see. Commission. Accomplishing a task incorrectly. And I'm just going to put you or I, because I don't want to write unintentional or intentional. So, accomplishing a task incorrectly. A couple months ago, a fellow mechanic came to me and said, hey, do you have this pushrod tube? I broke one. Well, how'd you break a pushrod tube on an engine? Well, I'm changing out the cylinder and broke the pushrod tube. You took the cylinder off. Did you remember to do a wet torque on those bolts or did you do a dry torque? Wet torque. See, I have a couple rules in life. One, when somebody repeats the question you just said, you know they didn't do it. That's my other one. How can I think of it? So I know I'm in trouble. I said, you dry torqued it, didn't you? Well, we'll get into it in engines, but when you dry torque an engine, you lose 40% of the torque on that cylinder, which means that cylinder at some point is probably going to part company with the rest of the engine. And so the engines don't do well when they lose half their engine. So you did it incorrectly, didn't torque it correctly. As an AMP, he should have known better, but he never had me as a teacher. So he did it incorrectly. Was it intentional or unintentional?
Intentional.
No, he didn't choose to do it wrong. He didn't know better. He didn't read the book carefully. It's kind of hidden. It doesn't say. By the way, some of these manuals are not really well done, especially the Lycoming manual. It doesn't say, and now put some 100 weight oil on the nut and install the nut and torque it to 600 inch-pounds. It doesn't say that. It says it's some way other place in some service instruction that you were supposed to know about. So he did it unintentionally. All right? Go back to the 150. I had pulled that cylinder. I put the cylinder on. One of the things that manual says is you shall torque both sides at the same time, which means I have to have two mechanics, me and another person. We have to have two cylinder-based wrenches, two torque wrenches that are calibrated. You guys ever listen to that podcast, Ask the AMPs? You should. I'll get into that later. But anyway, they just had somebody call up and say, yeah, and I watched my mechanic. They didn't torque both sides. And they said, yeah, it's fine. That is intentionally doing it wrong. So I showed up with an extra guy and an extra torque wrench and an extra wrench because I am not going to do it incorrectly. But you see how easy a slippery slope is? It's like, well, it's probably okay. No, the book says to do it that way, you do it that way. All right, so extraneous. Extraneous, performing a task not authorized. That's either, of course, unintentional or intentional. Oh, this one will embarrass me a little bit, but I'll do it because I was trying to think of one that would be intentional. I don't know. Many years ago, when I ran an engine overhaul shop, and we had purchased this equipment from a very, very reputable local shop, and they just said, hey, we're going out of business, and we bought all the equipment and their personnel, and we continued doing these cylinder overhauls, engine overhauls. It was a lot of fun, and then that person went to retire, and they said, all right, Kevin, you're it. Go learn the trade. So, he taught me everything I needed to know about overhauling cylinders. We had this fantastic cylinder overhaul shop. It's just packed with business. And they had no warranty claims. It was awesome. And we developed these special procedures to make sure valves didn't go bad. And that's all part of it, which required us to reface rocker arms, because when you reface, a rocker arm is the thing that pushes down on the valve that opens it up. And hey, I learned how to reface rocker arms right here at Sacramento City College because I'm a graduate of this program. And we bought the engine shop, and the guy showed me how to do it. And we're doing it. And one day I get a call from the FAA. Say, hey, Kevin, can I ask you a question? Yeah. You guys reface our rocker arms? You bet we do. We're the best anywhere. Where's your data for doing that? It's in the overhaul manual. What page would that be? And you don't have to answer me now, but call me back in about an hour or so with that page number, would you? Absolutely. Oh, shit. It's not in the page book. Let me try this book. I can't find it. I started calling engine shops that I work with. Hey, you guys overhaul rocker arms? Yeah, we do. What data do you have? It's in the overhaul manual. Yeah, no, it's not. And the FAA just called me. What? I called like half a dozen shops, and they all said it's in the overhaul manual. I said, you know what? It's not. Until I finally called, they're not in business anymore, ECI. They made a lot of cylinders, and I had a great business with them. I called them up and said, hey, you guys are overhaul rocker arms. I know it because I send them to you sometimes. He's like, yeah. I go, that's not in the overhaul manual? Because of course it's not in the overhaul manual. We have a special procedure to do it that's approved by the FAA. Can I have that, please? So I had to call the FAA back and say, okay, yeah, we've been doing this, and we now realize we are not supposed to do it, but here's what I'm going to do to fix it and remedy this and that. And they said, okay. And but I was doing a task not authorized. Unintentionally, I didn't know. So is everybody else. So now after that, now if I decide to do it today, I did, because I just did these cylinders on this 150, and I go, hey, look at these rocker arms. They don't look too well. And by the way, I have a brand new. It's only been in a year or two of service here at the school. I spent over $8,000 on a machine that will reface valves and rocker arms. So I decided I want to bring that rocker arm down and reface it. I'm doing a task that is,
Not authorized.
and now I'm doing it. That's not good. And I did not do that thing. Because an idiot would do that thing. So, all right, so we have 3 types. Maybe we should try and keep these in mind as we move forward through stuff. We can kind of ask ourselves, was that an omission, a commission, or extraneous? Or, we can think about that. All right. So here's the problem well, there's a lot of problems. Also with me, it's always like the number one. It's like the number one problem, and I'll have like it 3 times. I'll say number one problem. So just get used to that. The best people make the worst mistakes. Worst, with the T, S-T. Make the worst mistakes. The more experience you get, the more skills you get, the more knowledge you get, the more likely you are to make the biggest mistake. And why is that?
Complacency.
You know everything.
Was that?
Confidence.
Some overconfidence.
I like that. Confidence, complacency. You guys are actually way ahead of me right now. And you are 100% correct. But where I was going with this is, like in my shop, somebody gets down to, well, we're going to take off some cylinders tomorrow when I get there. Why are they not doing it today? Because it's a complex operation and I don't trust anybody else to do it. So we're going to be pulling some cylinders, changing out some seals, and doing some work for like open heart surgery on this engine and putting it back together. I'm the only one who I trust in the shop to do this at this point. I haven't trained them up to this level. So I am doing the skill that is most likely to cause damage or hurt somebody. You don't kill people by putting the wrong tire pressure in a tire, generally speaking. So I trust them to do the tires and wheels and brakes and all that kind of stuff. But I'm the guy doing the engine work. Right? So I'm not saying I'm the best people, but I'm saying that the best people, the people with the highest level of skill, are called upon to do the most demanding, exacting, and difficult work that puts you in the position of making a mistake. So I'm always very careful, well, number one, about pointing fingers at anybody, because, the old saying, by the grace of God, there go I, meaning, I'm glad it didn't happen to me, could have. People make mistakes. So that's what happened. So it's because the most knowledgeable mechanics are called upon. And we're going to see some examples of that where that's what happened. So the complex things are done by the best people. Best people are putting themselves in that position. All right. Okay, told you there are how many types of human error?
3.
All right, so there are 2 types of human error. But that's from Dr. James Reason. And I just love the fact that James Reason, and that's his real name, is kind of the leading authority on human factors. The reason why things go the way they go. Noted, there are 2 types. 2 types of noted. 2 types of human failure. What are those 2 types? But you can see they're going to be different than we looked at. Active and latent. Active is one in which the effects are immediate. Let's see what I have. hoping for an active failure. Sometimes I have active failures in my office. Let me see, behind you I have all kinds of stuff. What do I have over here? No. All right. It's obvious, though. It's one which affects your immediate. What I was looking for is I have a connecting rod, which is the thing that connects to the crankshaft, which has a piston pin goes through it, and the piston goes on it. And mechanic put the piston pin through the piston, but missed the connecting rod, and it started up and beat it to death. That was pretty immediate when they started it up. Something where you start the engine and it goes boom. That's pretty much immediate. Latent is something that occurs as a result of a decision made or action taken long before the incident or accident actually occurs. So occurs as the result of a decision made or action taken long before the incident. Or accident. Well, remember I told you about the guy who didn't torque the cylinders? That's going to be latent. That cylinder is going to be fine for a while. And then one day, if we're lucky, the pilot's going to open up the cowling and just go, hey, the studs that hold the engine on are missing. There's one or two of them are gone. They've work hardened and sheared off and fell off. But if he's not lucky, one day he's going to be flying along and go, hey, something just left the engine and now it's shaking really bad and quit. And the cowling's got a big old hole through it because the cylinder blew right off. So that's latent. So not torquing something properly is latent. It's just waiting to go. So that's bad. I talked about this briefly with the FAA's new attitude. So aviation used to be the blame game. Aviation used to be the blame game. In other words, it was who screwed up and who are we going to fire? Who are we going to fine? Who are we going to put in jail? By the way, I didn't really mention that. If you do something horrific and people are hurt, die, you can be held criminally responsible and go to prison. I have a recent student, not that long ago, he's a judge. Really cool guy, really enjoyed having him in the class. And I had brought this up, and I said, is that true? And he said, absolutely. And I brought up this thing that I had learned a long time ago. I drove ambulance, and so when I got my EMT license, it was this idea of a prudent medic. You would not be sued if what you did is the same thing a prudent medic would have done. So I said, I believe it's the same thing with aviation, that if you do what a prudent mechanic does, you're reasonably safe. But in a court of law, if they say, yeah, you did something that was just outside of what a normal mechanic did, you would be held criminally responsible. He said, oh, that's absolutely true. So now it's not to preclude you from a civil lawsuit for killing people, but as long as you're within the law, I believe you won't go to prison. Wouldn't that really stink? I mean, not only do you kill people, but you end up going to jail or prison for their manslaughter. So, sure you want to do this? Okay. I hope you say yes, because I need some mechanics. All right. Oh yeah, it used to be the blame game, but they've really changed that. One of the things, and there's all these acronyms. I'm sorry. I read the wrong thing. Maintenance. Maintenance, error, decision aid, or media, MEDA, more like MEDA to me, used to investigate errors, understand causes, prevent and manage accidents, and most of the things that occur. Without writing all that, basically what the culture has gone to, the FAA for sure, which is supposed to trickle down to the shops. Now it's up to the shop to decide if they want to do this or not. Not all shops buy into this. There's no law that says a shop can't play the blame game. Airplane crashed, your fault, you're fired. This is all your fault. A good shop stops and says, all right, we had a problem. Rather it was an accident that happened, something that could have happened and we caught right before it went out the door, we stop and we say, we have a problem. How are we going to address this problem? And what did management do to cause this to happen down the line? So we take a look backwards. Instead of down at the mechanic, the proper attitude anymore is we look up towards management and we say, what happened? Right? So that's the attitude. And then you make changes based upon what happened. Safety procedures, right? Somebody leaves a tool inside of a wing. That's really bad, but it happens all the time. In fact, I think at one point somebody told me at AMTP school, don't ever write your name on your tools. Why not? Well, because we leave it in the airplane, they'll know who did. Well, I have a better idea. How about we don't leave tools in the airplane? Yeah.
I worked at the airport for Delta.
Yeah.
We had a ceiling panel in one of our bins fall, started drooping down that we had to call maintenance for, and he was like pushing on it, trying to get it back up, and he's like, "This one's pretty heavy," and he pulls it out, and there's just a wrench that falls.
It gets to keep the wrench. So yeah, you have procedures in place because we do. Flashlights up at the wings are real common and stuff. So then you stop and you say, okay, we need to have a tool prevention policy, which they're already in place. I was very impressed when I went to Gulfstream. I mentioned that. Gulfstream provides toolboxes for everybody. You don't buy any tools. They must have hundreds of these things. They did the exact same snap-on toolbox, the same color. They're the size of this table. And they have 5 people working out of it. You have a badge that you hit it opens, unlocks the drawer. You take a tool, you leave a tool chip at the tool you use, you work on the airplane. At the end of the job, a supervisor has to unlock the tool cabinet and inventory all of the tools, which are shadowed, so if they're missing, it's obvious, before the aircraft is released. If they are missing a tool, they go and open the aircraft up and look for it until they find it. That's a massive loss of revenue for the airplane and the company. Then, if they can't find it, they call the owner and the director of maintenance of the aircraft, sit them down and say, we lost a tool in your airplane, and we need you to sign a liability release waiver, saying that there's a tool floating around somewhere, and you accept the aircraft with the tool floating around. And they have the option to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. You better find the damn tool. In fact, they were telling the story about they had lost an extension cord of all things. They had all of the fuel tanks opened up. They had it in there doing fuel work. And now it's gone, an extension cord, possibly in a fuel cell. They had to open this whole damn airplane up and couldn't find it anywhere. And they had to do some massive search through the entire building. And this building is miles long. Or mile long. It's enormous. And somebody had borrowed it on another plane and didn't tell anybody and forgot to bring it back. So, anyway. Okay. I know you haven't had tests with me and stuff. Like, what are my tests going to look like? I try not to make you memorize things that I don't feel like memorizing. So I treat you like I want to be treated. I would do something like, what does MEDA stand for? And I would write Maintenance Error Decision Aid, or some other thing that stands, I would probably go like ChatGPT and give me 4 things that are funny that, stand for, that are aviation related. So I don't have to think of it. And I would put 4 other silly things. So that's kind of how we do something like that. I'm not the kind of guy to say, what is MEDA? Write it out. I don't teach you that. All right, so here's another one. These all kind of tie together. The shell, S-H-E-L. And sometimes I don't always agree with what I have to write, but it's a test question that you're going to be faced with the FAA, so I need to cover it. So I think the shell model is one of them that I'm like, really? Model is one concept of investigating human error that examines the following. And I don't like this one. Software. What is software? No, you're wrong. It's not what you're thinking. It is manual layouts, checklist layouts, symbology, language, and computer programs. Okay, so there's computer programs. So manual layout. How your written manual is actually laid out. They've really changed how manuals, it used to be kind of a free-for-all, but now we have ATA codes, so manuals are all in kind of, they're all similar, but yet I work on Lycoming engines a lot. It's like one of the worst manuals out there. So you'll see, and I'm not going to give you the visual right now, but you won't remember. It'll be fun when I actually do it. But the Lycoming engine overhaul manual that covers all the way from the little tiny Cessna 152 Lycoming 0235 all the way up to the IO 540. That's a 540 cubic inch 6-cylinder engine, uses the same manual, and it is thinner than my notes. But on page 1, it says this manual shall be used in conjunction with all applicable service bulletins, letters, and instructions. Okay, so I need to use the service bulletins, instructions, and letters to complement the manual. Well, how much is that? Oh, they're this tall. I'm going to print it out because I have a set in my office, and I usually bring it out and go, boom, there's your manual. And you have to know those. That could be manual layout. That could be when I talked about the guy who didn't wet torque the cylinders because the manual had it in a service instruction somewhere instead of putting it or in the back of the table of limits or something. So that could be manual layout, checklist layout, because we all use checklists in aviation. Checklist list, that's not what I meant to write. Checklist layout. I write a lot of checklists for my company, and I'm always kind of moving them around and changing, making them better, trying to get that, we missed something. Why do we miss it? Was the checklist bad? Symbology. Hey, I didn't know what that asterisk meant. Language. Language or computer programs. Could be any of that is software. Then there's hardware, which is the location of components. Accessibility, tooling. I worked with a guy. I really like this guy. We're still pretty close. And he has this. He just sings this. I hate airplanes, and he's just kind of all the time. He was saying that. I don't. When things are tough, and it's a very difficult task. As a shop owner, I kind of smile. I'm like, it's really hard to do. So we're gonna make a lot of money because number one, most people won't do it. Number two, it takes a while. So it's a good paying job. But 3, airplanes just do what an airplane does, right? My wife I used to get so mad when things would break around the house. That damn dishwasher, we just bought that. She's like, everything made, its job is to return to dirt from which it came. That's its job. So it's just doing its job. So when an airplane breaks, corrodes, it's just doing what it's supposed to do, right? So, I don't know. So I don't get too upset when it gets hard, but when things do get hard, if you don't take the time to do them correctly, you end up with a problem here in your hardware section. C, environment. How would you feel right now if our air conditioner had quit? Yeah, not too good. Get a little stuffy in here. Yeah.
How hot does the hangar get in the summer?
110, 115.
Okay.
Better than being out on the tarmac.
Huh?
I was gonna say, it's better than being out on the tarmac, though.
Okay.
It's warm in the tail, though.
See how tan I am? That's not my natural color. All right. We work in the sun. We work in the heat. We work in the cold. My hangar is neither insulated, air conditioned, or heated. So, it gets hot. Get used to it. When I was working in working engines, one of my smaller shops that I worked a lot in, where I overhauled cylinders and did non-destructive testing, it was a common day to have the gas furnace running, and it's open to the environment. I have cylinders in there heating up to 450 degrees, 2 cylinders at 450 degrees, plus the NDT oven running at 180 degrees. No insulation, no air conditioning. Now, the place where I assembled engines was the only air-conditioned spot in the building. So when I saved my assembly. So when I assembled engines, it was nice and air-conditioned. And the heater in the winter blew right in there, so it was a perfect environment. But yeah, so let me see, temperature, humidity, sound, light, time of day, your circadian rhythms. We have a natural tendency to be tired after lunch, most of us. So, let me see. With Shell, SHE, so that means we have one more. D, Livewire. Or Liveware. Livewire. This is your interaction with other people. Both on and off the job. Hey, did you get in a fight with your significant other on the way out the door? Did the puppy pee on the carpet after you said don't buy a puppy? I'm just, just a hypothetical, that could have happened to me this morning. Although I love my puppy, so that's okay. And my wife cleaned it up, so it was fine. Yeah, we have interactions with people every day. And how does that affect you? I had my IA inspection authorization. The guy who runs a shop in my Olympia shop called me the other day. And he's like, hey, Kevin, so he gets to work really early, and because I work late, I get to work later. Yeah, I had to have an answer on something, so I called the FAA. What'd you ask him? He told me. I'm like, cool, what'd they say? He goes, whoa, wait a minute. What did you just say to me? I said, cool, what did the FAA say? He goes, dude, I was prepared for an ass chewing. I'm like, over what? He goes, every single job I have ever worked at, it was explicit, you do not call the FAA. He goes, but I really had to get this done, and I was holding up the job, and you weren't available, and I needed an answer. I'm like, did you call the FAA any time of day you want? I said, you should invite him down to the hangar. We're not hiding from him. He's like, you have no idea, man. He goes, I've never worked for a shop like this. He goes, this is weird. So it's like, he was having a bad day for a minute there, and suddenly he's like, oh, I don't know, just a story that came to mind. Okay, that is a perfect place to stop right there. Oh, wait a minute, no, it's not a perfect place to stop. There, ta-da, slide. Shell is used to determine not only what the problem is, but where and why it exists. Shell was initiated, Shell software, hardware, environment, Liveware, procedures, machines, worker, personnel. There we go. S is for procedures, H is for machines, E is for, I don't like this one. Anyway, but sorry to Professor Elwin Edwards and Meredith. We're not enjoying this thing. But this is just one thing that, again, it's the new paradigm, the new shift of thinking. Let's find the problem, not blame the person. So, all right, before we run off, first we will do this.